All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Eternal Show, episode 4, Mechanical Engineering. I am your host, Alex Lamelli, also known as Lamelli18, and also joined by my co-host, Sean Campbell, also known as the Overmaster.
Hey guys, what's up?
And so
All right.
today, hello everybody. Welcome
Oh,
to the
I
Eternal
have
Show. Okay, so a little echo there, my bad. All right. So today's show, we're gonna be talking about obviously the new patch that just came out. Was it not too long ago? Was it Friday? No, it
Uh,
was a couple days ago
okay.
actually. Sorry.
Monday.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
came out a couple days ago. We're going to be going over the mechanics of the game, and then we're going to have our personal top 5 mechanics listed out for you guys towards the end of the show, so you guys could let us know if you guys agree with each point or not. You guys could let us know here live on the chat, or if you're watching from YouTube, also in the comments below. And then lastly, like always, we'll be going over the ETS results from last week, and then we'll be concluding the show from there. So let's hop right into it. So we'll be going over. So the big thing about the patch that happened was we got a new promo card. So it is a 3 cost Yeti with double primal influence. Called Wump Party Starter. Whenever you play a Yeti, including Wump, it deals 1 damage to the enemy player, and then all your other Yetis get +1/+1. So what do you have to say about this, Overmaster?
I'm not too sure how good the card is, but it's certainly awesome. It's certainly a brew around um, that I'm excited about brewing around. I've played on the ladder with a few Wump decks already, mostly with 2 of them, not with the 3 of them. I haven't had enough time to play with 3 of them on my deck. Um, but Uh, Seems pretty strong, especially if you play a Wump and then Scouting Party. I mean, isn't that how it's supposed to be? Like you're starting the party, Scouting Party, Party Starter. That's
it's
that's that's
It's a dual card combo, yeah. Because once you play the scouting party, so let's break down that interaction for our audience here. So basically, if you have one party starter on the field, and if you play a Yeti that has infiltrate, so a Yeti spy off of just the regular card Yeti spy, or if you play scouting party when you get 4 of them, um,
or to note Yeti Snowslinger. Although
yes,
I will say that Yeti Snowslinger is not as powerful, even though it gains advantage. I don't think it's as powerful as just having a nice one cost a Yeti to trigger the Wump, or to have just scouting parties. So
yeah.
that's
So
in testing. That's in testing though.
yeah, in testing so far. So yeah, so basically, if you play a Yeti with infiltrate, you'll get that infiltrate right away, because once it enters the battlefield, it'll deal 1 damage, and then it is overall a Yeti Lord. So you basically beefs all your Yetis by +1/+1, which is great when combat racing. Also, if you play a scouting party, you get the draw 4 right away, but then you get a bunch of tutus. So it's basically kind of like a Xene Obelisk on the field, at least the first half, not the second half. So there's been quite at least 2 major brews that I've seen people messing with. Do you have any ideas of what those brews are, Overmaster, before I get into them?
Uh, well, there's been. I mean, I did a brew with twinning and mirror image.
Oh, okay.
That was mostly because I only had 2 Wumps and I wanted to just have as many Wumps as I
As
possibly
possible.
could.
Yeah.
I mean, I also had 2 Celestial Omens in the place of 2 Wumps, which is clearly inferior. It was so bad. But also there was one that Smoony and me, well, mostly Smoony, but I've come up with my own version of it now. The with Dark Return, splashing for Dark Return and Protect.
Hmm.
That's a pretty interesting one, especially with the Yeti Troublemaker. It's pretty effective to get like a whole bunch of different triggers off of the Wump. But and also there's a Teriyaki brew that basically is a crystalline chalice brew with a Wump at the centerfold. It's pretty nice.
Oh, yeah,
There's been
that's
a lot of brews.
Yeah, the main 2 that I like to see that at least were brought to my attention right when the card was announced was basically kind of throwing it into like a shimmer pack list. It's not really much of a combo when you get it there, but when you play your scouting parties into Shimmer Pack, you're getting the draw for immediately. So um, there's a brew right there. And then also the main one that I know that people have been throwing around is with the Channeler, the 5 cost 3/2 that whenever it enters the
Oh,
battlefield, deal 1 damage. So basically you go wide with all your Yetis and then you play the Channeler to deal an extra 1 point of damage to your opponent with each of your creature.
so you have
But
the dual combo. You have the dual combo. You have a channeler with scouting party, and you also have scouting party with the womp. So both of them work
yeah.
to infiltrate, get the 4 card draws immediately. Well, yeah, not really immediately with the channeler, but at least you don't have to attack with the Yetis with the channeler.
Yeah, so those are basically the brews I see. If you guys have any spicy brews that you guys feel that should be noteworthy, please feel free to email them or either message us personally so we can possibly feature it here on the show because we like to see what people are building with this awesome card. So
I may or may not be going to the Winter Classic next week with a Wump
you may or
deck.
may not be. So a mini sneak preview there. So, but other than that, this card looks great. Awesome addition. Way to spice things up, especially after the new patch. But other than that, this was like the main announcement. The rest of them were kind of just getting rid of bugs coming into the open
Well,
beta. Um,
to be fair, most of the bugs were related to Wump, but
oh yes, yes they were. But yeah, and then also one other what's it called big point from the patch is that the season got extended by a few days. Now instead of ending on the end of December, it will be ending in January 4th. So you guys have a few extra days to grind there. So make sure you guys hit master as soon as possible, but you guys have an extra few days to do so. So that's awesome. But all right,
I'm hanging out in 450th Masters.
Inconstructed, nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our next big segment of the show is mechanical engineering. So we're basically going to be breaking down the mechanics of the game and highlighting key, what's called interactions that it should be noteworthy, especially if you're new to the game and not sure. And then also if you weren't aware about the interactions. And then also we'll be talking about if we think the mechanic is a good mechanic overall, and if we're hoping to see more uh, what's called build around cards later on from Direwolf Digital. And then lastly, to end the segment, we'll be going into our top 5 mechanics of the sets. So let's start off. So the first mechanic we're going to be talking about is the Fate mechanic. So go ahead and start us off here, Overmaster.
Well, fate is basically reads when it's drawn, something happens. So it'll be listed after the colon. For example, there are a few that are constructed playable. They took out my favorite one, the one that gained 3 life when you drew it. Rest in peace.
RIP.
Rest in peace, Fate Healer. You've got things like Lumen Shepherd, which gets you a 1/1. Static Bolt. It's not really a fate card, but it says fate on it, and you basically it gives an extra point of damage to every single copy in your deck. To note, it's when drawn though when that happens. So the first one deals 2 damage. Jotun Hurler is the one that I've seen probably see the most play. Maybe Mistfield Drake in constructed play, especially recently.
Oh yes, definitely.
Because of the Oni, because you can use a fire a snowball on a Pyre Knight or a Oni Ronin and kill it, right? And Mistfield Drake, of course, you draw it, you get an Aegis, which against Obliterate and Flame Blast is pretty sick. And I want to see the community play around with Kyriax a little more. I can't play around with it right now because I don't have the card, but anybody who actually has opened it and would like to build around that card, it's pretty nice if you do things like with Second Sight, you can put it back on top of your library. You get more and more of the Dragon's Eye in your deck, and you just keep on drawing more and more cards, which would be pretty sick as a control mechanic, I think. It's a 6/6 endurance flyer too. I mean, it's a pretty nice finisher.
Yeah, like so the fate mechanic obviously is very powerful, but it seems like Direwolf Digital is very aware of it being powerful.
Yeah.
So you don't see absurd cards like especially being played off of the mechanic. But yes, it's good to note that Mistveil Drake and what's it called? What was the other one that you said? Mistveil Drake and
The
Hurler.
bodies themselves are the Jotun Hurler and the Mistveil Drake are seeing the most play. Yeah, Static Bolts of course seen play in Carpet Shuffle decks, but that's just way too slow for the current meta.
Oh, most
Um,
definitely.
uh, yeah, for sure. They've taken a look at the fact that you just drawing the card shouldn't break the game open, right? Uh,
Mhm.
but they also have overcosted the actual units themselves. I think to because of the fact that I think that the fate mechanic is that strong, right?
Mhm.
Like even like a 6 cost 4/6, and you still run it occasionally in Chalice decks, or a 5 cost 4/4, and it's still fine in a control deck, right?
Yeah, and then it's nerdy, or nerdy. It's worthy to note that Hurler doesn't show, and neither does Static Bolt when you draw the fate card. Usually, it will reveal the card to your opponent. So, for instance, Mistveil Drake, when you draw it, it will reveal the card to your opponent to show that that's where you got the Aegis from. Um, but Hurler does not. It looks more like an Echo card, so that's one thing to note for sure because it could be easily mistaken as an Echo card in certain decks, but not like usually I can pick out a hurler in a felon deck because usually it does not run many echo cards. I guess like the other echo card that can be seen in felon decks are more in the haunting scream decks with the Herald Song. But
So
usually in the felon control decks, they'll be running maybe one or two hurlers depending on what type of build they are. Some usually go up to four, but usually you can pick that out. And I also know that it also has a different animation than an echo. So if you're watching carefully, you can specifically tell that it's different from an echo. But most of the time, if you barely get a glance of it, you would assume that's some type of echo card.
maybe a thing you can use the replay for. I actually did not know that. That it was slightly different than an Echo. I'll have to take a
Yeah,
note
it's
of it
slightly
next time.
different. I can't pick out the different. Like I think it does like a different spin, on the card, but
Uh,
it's very similar though, so it can be mistaken for an echo card though. So do be aware of that. But anyways, the main card that I want to talk about with Fate was the Mistveil Drake because I feel that it's starting to see play due to it having Aegis on its own, and also, um,
you can search it out,
yes, you can search it
and
out.
you can instantly get, for example, a Celestial Omen for a Mistfall Drake, and you can instantly stop. For example, if they obliterate your face, you can just get an Aegis at instant speed, which is quite powerful, especially since you also get a 3/3 flyer out of the deal if you pay for it. So that's quite a lot of value, I think.
Oh yeah, so
And I mean, of
yeah,
course, you could
instant
just
speed
backlash
Aegis.
it. You can just backlash it and obliterate. But I mean, it's just cooler to just
Well, if you
get
don't have the backlash in your
it.
hand and you don't have backlashes in your deck at all, and they go for a 10 Flame Blast, that can be a quick snag to help save your life from the dreaded Stone Scar burn list. Um, but other than that, I think that's pretty much wraps up the Fate cards. Do you have any last words that you want to talk about Fate Overmaster before we move on?
Uh, no. It's. I mean, the mechanic it would obviously be broken if it was more powerful than what it is. But it's good that the mechanic is in the game is a very cool mechanic. I think.
Yes, it's a very fun mechanic. It's very cool, like interesting things that I would like to see what Direwolf Digital has in store for us in the future, hopefully. So that is the Fate mechanic. We'll be moving on to a kind of a group of mechanics here, leading into our honorable mentions before we get into the top five. But Overwhelm and Deadly have a special interaction that is seen in other card games, and it should be noted that if you're new to Eternal, that it works very similar. But if you have a unit with Overwhelm and Deadly, so for instance, the main creature that has Overwhelm and Deadly is the Champion of Chaos. So it'll deal 1 damage to the unit because all it takes is 1 damage to kill the unit, and then the rest will overwhelm over to your opponent's life total. So it's need to be aware of that when you're in those blocking situations. Do you have anything to add, Overmaster?
Well, it's with the overwhelm deadly thing. I think that's what makes Stone Scar Burn a little bit over the top powerful right now. Is that Champion of Chaos is a little powerful, too powerful probably with that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't change the interaction though. It makes sense. The interaction
Yes.
actually makes sense. So I don't think you can change the actual interaction. I think you would have to change the card itself. But it really does make it very very hard to when you're in a racing situation against Burn, and you're at like 10 life, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say, right? And Champion of Chaos,
It's a
they have a
5/5.
Champion of Chaos, right? And you have like a 5/5 blocker. Well, I mean, you're gonna kill the Champion of Chaos. You're gonna take 4, and then you're in overwhelm range,
Or obliterate.
right? Yeah, sorry, yeah, obliterate range, or probably flame blast range as well, right?
Yes.
It's just very very hard, and there's almost nothing you can do about it in certain combinations unless you have the removal spell immediately, right?
Yeah,
So
and it gets through a lot of removal spells too. It dodges what's it called,
annihilate,
suffocate, if you don't,
yeah,
if you have any influence requirement for it. It dodges torch if you have any influence requirements for it. It dodges
and
annihilate because it's double influence or double faction requirement. So only really.
and a good Stone Scar burn player will actually hold off on the Champion of Chaos
Mhm.
against suffocate in the face of suffocate and torch, in favor of getting it to the four toughness body or the 4 power body, in case of suffocate. So you're just against a good Stone Scar burn player, and I mean I'm saying good loosely. I mean it's not a very hard deck to play. Uh, but like that is one thing that they'll do, and it's very hard to just play around
Yeah.
that, right?
But yeah, so that wraps up the Champion of Chaos talk. But moving on, so that's like the main interaction that we see with Overwhelm. Also, we want to talk about the Relic Weapon interaction. So when a Relic Weapon has a keyword, your spells have that keyword as well. So for instance, with the Overwhelm, if you have a Stone Scar Maul, that is the 5 or the 6 cost double red 6/3 Overwhelm weapon. So if you torch a 2/2 while you have that weapon on, the extra point of damage will go through and hit your opponent. So that is an interaction that you should be aware of. It doesn't really come up often, but it's still cool to know. And then the big interaction that I think I think is like kind of the best one with the relic weapon interaction is the last word. Do you want to explain that one for us, Overmaster?
Okay, so last word has deadly and quick draw. Well, the quick draw doesn't really matter in terms of spells because you're just damaging unit anyway. But with deadly, you can do something like lightning storm, and it
Mm-hmm.
will take out every single unit because your spells now have deadly because your relic weapon has deadly and quick draw. To note, another relic, even though it only turns on for one turn, is life drinker, and
Yeah.
you can gain life. You can gain life. For example, if you torch something, you torch your opponent's face, a unit, you can actually get life steal. Um, uh, you can gain life steal off of that interaction as well. It's a, it, the interactions don't come up like an extreme amount, but I think later on, potentially in set 2 or set 3 or something like that, we'll see more and more of these interactions come up, and it is good to take note of them early so that
Yes.
you're not surprised by them later on.
Yeah, because that's pretty good. Because like if say you play your life drinker and then you have a torch in hand, you basically gain 3 life plus you get to kill something if it's in range, I guess you could say. But yeah, the insane interaction is the last word, giving yourself deadly and then lightning storming the field and basically kills everything. So you also have to note that it kills your creatures as well. So don't lightning storm and expect only your opponent's creatures to die.
Or, or if you have ages, well, we'll talk about that later on. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you have ages, don't expect your units to on your units. Don't expect your units to live because it's only on enemy effects.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
But
So
anyway,
that is a good note to point out there, Overmaster. And then also Aegis, if you have Aegis yourself, it protects the weapon from Ruin, Decay effects, also from being burnt out as well. So that's also good to note. It doesn't. The Aegis does not stay on the weapon though when it gets destroyed. That just fizzles off, so it just becomes the regular weapon as you'll see. So those are pretty sweet interactions. So we're gonna be hitting our honorable mentions here. Before we move into our top 5, we have 3 mechanics that we would like to mention and talk a little bit about. The first one we're going to talk about is the echo mechanic. We feel like the echo mechanic would have been way better if it didn't get hurt by the crown interaction a little bit. But it is also very strong, and there's been cards that have surged due to changes that have made them even better. So go ahead and lead us off here, Overmaster.
So Echo is actually what I think is one of the is probably the coolest mechanic in my opinion from Eternal. Right, it has something very new and unique that I haven't seen in any other game. I don't even think, even though the simulators between, for example, Hex TCG and this game are obvious. Right, there's a lot of simulators to them with the influence system, the way things are played and whatnot. But I don't think any other game has ever just drawn another card with the same copy of the same card. I'm not too sure. People who know more about these games should post in the chat. But there are some pretty cool things that have. There are some pretty cool cards that use Echo that use Echo that I have seen constructive play. I mean, not that they're not as much as what I would like, I guess. But things like Voice of the Speaker is a good one that has seen some constructive play, especially before the open beta. It's a little too slow to be running. There used to be, for those of you not in the know, who just started playing in the open beta, there used to be a ramp combo deck, basically that used Vodacon, Mystic Ascendant, and Martial Ironthorn to basically draw your deck. And if you had a Voice of the Speaker out, it was actually a lot easier to draw your deck. And let's see, with there's things like, well, Clockroach.
Clockroach.
Rip Clockroach. That's unfortunate because the Clockroach interaction with Crown changed. That means that Clockroaches, which is what the deck was called, isn't really as good anymore, which is a little unfortunate. I think they could change it back and.
It'd still be fine, but I feel that the reason why they changed that was due to later sets. I'm just guessing because the deck wasn't.
It was never intended to be like. It was never intended to be like that.
Oh, it was never intended.
I think that was more like a bug that wasn't a bug kind of thing, right?
Okay.
I don't think it was actually intended to interact that way, but since it did interact that way, it was kind of fun to see the effects of it. The new Echo card that came out was Yeti Troublemaker, and I mean, we may see some play with the Wump.
With the Wump, yes, most definitely. I can see that gaining play as well. And then also Thunderstrike Dragon, seeing incredible play, being decreased cost from 6 to 5. That is a notable.
7 to 6.
Oh, 7 to 6, my bad.
Jesus.
Yeah, 5. Oh, yeah, that would be insane, right? So, sorry, 7 to 6 has been seeing incredible play in a lot of mid-rangey primal decks. But the key interactions that we like to talk about, though, is if you Dark Return it. So say you have an Echo creature in the Void and you Dark Return it back. You'll get 2 copies of the card because it says Dark Return says draw a unit from the Void and give it +1/+1. So you'll say you Dark Return a Thunderstrike Dragon. You'll get a 6/6 Thunderstrike Dragon and then a 6/6 Echo version of it as well, since the card has Echo. And that goes the same for Smuggler Stash. Smuggler Stash doesn't give the additional +1, but if you do choose one of the Echo cards in the Void, you'll get an additional copy of it as well, which is insane because you're just drawing so much cards for free, basically.
Also to note, that's insane advantage. Also, any war card triggers will stack up on both Echo cards. So, for example, Ornamental Daggers in draft, it's actually pretty insane if you have any way to get Warcry at all. For example, in a Combra Legion deck, maybe you have a Crown Watch Paladin or something like that, and you have an Ornamental Daggers, and you hit it, it's just much more insane than just a +1/+1/+1. And when you get two that are +2/+2. Also, Rise of the Challenge, which I've done a lot.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not gonna
Rise of
lie.
the Challenge. Yes, Rise of the
Right.
Challenge. You search your library for a any creature or weapon card and give it +2 attack. So you can say you search up a Thunderstrike Dragon, since we're talking more about that card. You'll get 2 copies of it, but it'll be a 7/5 over just a 5/5 flyer, which is awesome as well. So that is an honorable mention to the Echo mechanic, which is really powerful. Hope to see more to come, obviously in the future from Direwolf. So the next honorable mention is Quick Draw. The main reason why we gave this an honorable mention is because it is super hard to block a large Quick Draw creature, because it comes down to if it gets large enough due to Warcry triggers or due to weapon Voltroning up your unit with weapons. You usually just need a spot removal spell in order to deal with it most effectively. So when getting out of control, it can end up being a 2-for-1 basically all the time. Do you have anything to add about the quick draw mechanic, Overmaster?
I think that a lot of the quick draw units are extremely powerful. The ones that actually have quick draw that you're seeing constructed play, like you have Rakano Outlaw and Champion of Glory, right? Those two are played as 4-ofs in the. I mean,
Rakano
it's the
aggro deck.
top. It's the top deck of the format right now. It's just, and it's very hard to deal with these things, right? It is very hard to deal with these things once you have to basically eventually you have to chump them, and if you're trying to continuously chump, for example, Rakano Outlaw, they're just going to continuously get Warcry triggers, and that just snowballs out of control even more. So, and the only way to eventually deal with these units is to kill them, and sometimes you just don't have the requisite removal, especially against Champion of Glory, where Annihilate and Permafrost and yeah, Annihilate and Permafrost just basically don't work against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suffocate occasionally works against it, but even then, as once it's Voltron, it doesn't work. You know, very few things actually kill it eventually, um, and it's just extremely difficult to deal with in the later parts of the game. To note also, Rapid Shot is
Oh, Rapid
a,
Shot, yes.
is one of the most powerful tricks in the game. Seeing play constructed, right?
Also in
I mean,
draft too. Draft having like 2 or 3 Rapid Shots in your deck, especially in the aggressive Stonescar list, just puts your opponent at a disadvantage, because you attack in there and they're like, all right, well, this Xenian Destroyer has to attack because it has Reckless. I guess I'll block it with my 4/4. Well, guess what? I gain 7 life and you lose your creature. So, um,
it's ugh. When they attack with their 2/2 into your 4/4, you're just like, oh, god
yeah,
damn
like, well, what else can they
it.
have, right? Like, no one makes just one of those just oddball attacks. That's what I
No.
think in Stonescar lists, or even in Felon lists sometimes, when you have a reckless creature that just has to attack, like, your opponent is kind of just like, do they have it? Do they not have it? They're kind of second guessing themselves. And when they go for, oh, they don't have it, and you end up having it, it's just a true blowout, which is just really good. So,
It's a one mana removal spell. It's a
basically.
1 mana removal spell most of the time. Yep.
And one key thing to note, though, it only works when you're attacking. It is not like other games where it
Magic.
also affects when you're blocking. It is worthy to note that only works when you're attacking. So do not block and hope that, and think that your creature is going to survive the combat. It will most likely not, unless obviously you have tricks to pump up your creature. But
I did it at least 3 times my first week. I'm not gonna
oh
lie.
yes,
I did at least 2, 3 times because I'm just so used to Magic and First Strike.
oh
Man,
yes. No, I completely agree. It took me some time. It was probably the hardest mechanic to really learn. Um, Effectively, and you have to learn it by experience. It's kind of hard just to tell someone and them not understand it right away. They might think, but then obviously, boom, it's like it's totally
I mean, I knew what I
different.
was doing.
Yeah.
I just did it anyway because I thought, because there's magic, right?
Yes.
But
But all right, so our last honorable mention of the night, though, is Infiltrate mechanic. So basically, infiltrate mechanic is whenever a creature deals combat damage to the opponent, um, it you get an ability. So obviously, this almost scratched the top five. Well, it was actually pretty close, making the
In
top five
fact,
because
it probably should be in the top five, but I mean, we I don't know.
uh,
It was a secondary review of the literature. Let's say,
yeah.
just showed that there was quite a few infiltrate units that have made constructive play. But we'll go over that. Uh,
Yeah, so the infiltrate mechanic obviously gave birth to an archetype on its own, which was worthy to put in the top five, but for other considerations that we will go into more detail once we hit the top five, we'll explain why we chose it to be. I guess it would say for sure be number six if we had a larger ranking system, but we're going with top five for this week. But one key thing to note is that if the creature deals combat or deals damage to your opponent outside of combat, the infiltrate still triggers. So that leads back to the one party starter with your Yeti Spies and Snow Slingers. And also with the 5-drop channeler in red that deals one damage. Each creature deals one damage. So that's a good thing to note. Do you want to include anything else about the infiltrate mechanic, Overmaster?
and, going over the list, there's so many things that you wouldn't like that have infiltrate that have made a huge impact on constructive play. For example, well, I mean, you have Blood Beetle, okay, in the Jito list, right? The turn one Blood Beetle is probably their strongest play. It's honestly not turn one Frontier Jito because the Jito probably dies pretty quickly to a torture, or if they're on the draw a Varus favor, right? So you generally don't want to run out the Jito first turn. So the first turn play is generally their best turn one play is not only Ronin because they're not going to get as much time in order to utilize the workout triggers. It's actually probably a Blood Beetle. So that's one that sees play. In some Scream lists, so we're seeing Lethar Ranger, which is interesting. I'm not too sure how good it is, but I mean, turning a 2-cost 4/4 is pretty nice if you can get it through. Beast Caller's Amulet has seen play in multiple decks. The major one is, of course, Xenon Killers,
Xenon
right?
Killers, yes.
With its interaction with putting it onto a friendly wisp and then getting the card draw anyway, or triggering its all marker coming back, right? And of course you have the two big ones, Direward Beastcaller and Gorgon Fanatic, which basically spawn their own archetype. That is the Scream archetype. In fact, sometimes you don't even need to run any more than those 8 creatures in your units in your Scream deck. So I think most of them run, Umber Reapers and whatnot, some extra ones, but for the most part, all you need are the card draw from the Fanatics and then the finisher in terms of Direward Beastcaller, and that's basically a deck. And it's actually a very strong deck. You have to be you have to be patient against Haunting Scream deck. You can't not leave up removal. If you leave up instant speed removal, it's actually not a very difficult deck to deal with. But once it hits you with the Direward Beastcaller, you better look out. Like there's very little you can do against it sometimes, right? Especially early on in the game. Recurring Nightmare. Whew. That card
Yeah,
is,
that card is insane. That card's especially great, especially if you put a Protect on it, so it gains Aegis permanently, and then it continues to have Aegis. Another great card that interacts with these Infiltrate cards is the card Haunting Scream. Obviously shown and like as the 4 of basically in these Infiltrate decks, because recurring back a Beast Caller and then also recurring back a Gorgon Fanatic from the grave out of nowhere, flying in charge for the turn is just great, just to get that really fast effect, which will just end up taking control over the game, which is awesome. So anything else to add about the Infiltrate deck, or Infiltrate mechanic, sorry?
well, I mean, you have we already mentioned it, but the Calderan Channeler. I've actually brewed around it, the Calderan Channeler, and getting the minor effects. There's some other ones. I can't remember their names now. The one that deals that kills creatures, and you also have like Argentport Ringmaster, stuff like that. So, units that haven't seen play, but you can get them to see play because of the Calderan Channeler interaction, or even Hellfire Rifle interaction. But I mean that's pretty minor interaction, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the infiltrate mechanic is one of the coolest to build around. I think it's certainly a very strong mechanic to build around too. And as seen from the ladder, there are multiple people who have made masters using Scream decks, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that basically wraps up the honorable mentions. Now we're going to be moving on to our top 5 personal mechanics that me and Overmaster. We had a bit of a kind of going back and forth for the
The number one slot, but yeah.
yeah, well, basically every slot had a kind of we had our own cases to spill. So if you guys are currently watching live in the Twitch chat, feel free to guess on what our top 5 are. And then also, if you're watching in YouTube, put in the comments what you think they are, or what your top 5 is. And also, if you think we should, or you have any if we have any discrepancies in our list that we should take note of. But other than that, put in the chat, guys, what your top 5 is, and also in the comments, if you're watching from YouTube, put it in the comments what your top 5 is. So let's give our what's it called, our chats a few seconds to type up their lists real fast before we move on to our number 5. So number 5, kind of give our number 5 was going to be Infiltrate, but we decided on this mechanic because of the interactions that it brings to the game, that it really requires a keen eye.
We really just had Ambush, which is the mechanic number 5, at number 5 because of your because it's your list as well as mine, and Lamelli loves this mechanic a lot.
Yes, this is personally my favorite mechanic out of the whole entire what's it called, mechanics that we have in Eternal. And the reason why it made number 5 is because the due diligence of basically the mechanic and their interactions it plays on the game. So let's break down the mechanic of itself. Is that ambush creatures can come in after attacks are declared, in response to killer attacks. So if they try to killer or a weapon attack, you can ambush in a creature. And then also at the end of your opponent's turn. So there's a variety of different ambush creatures. The main one that sees play above all, I believe, is Desert Marshal. Coming down and silencing a unit is just insane, because they could go in with the attack with the flyer. You can silence a unit, drop it to the ground, and block it with one of your larger big creatures. And then also Cabal Countess. At the end of the turn, you could slap down Cabal Countess, ultimate it if you have 4 power, and then just take out their weapon if they just tapped out for a weapon itself. Anything you want to add about this mechanic, Overmaster?
Well, hold on a second. Let's break out the calculator for this one. 5 out of the 6 units have seen constructed play. All right, so that's 83% of the units have seen constructed play. The only one that hasn't seen constructed play, I think, is what's the one, the 06 flyer with ambush?
Dune Phantom.
Dune Phantom.
Good.
That's the only one that hasn't seen play. Hunting Terror Axe doesn't really see play anymore because it used to be running a pretty spicy Xenon Killer / Primal deck to trigger Dawnwalkers and whatnot. It's not as good anymore because the Dawnwalker comes back into play unexhausted. So, it comes back into play exhausted. So you can't do things like ambush an opponent's unit with a Dawnwalker anymore. But let's see. There's Desert Marshal, Stormlinks.
Stormlinks.
I have the list here. Yeah, basically all of them have seen
some sort of
play. Wasp is just, you have to be wary of Wasp. You have to play a test spell, for example, play an actual spell so that you can trigger and know that, okay, it's not Levitate or something like that. It's actually a Wasp when you declare attacks, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be aware of Wasp because it's one of those. You have to be aware. The Desert Marshal and Wasp are probably the most significant cards in the game, I think, to be aware of. Because Wasp is very unassuming, let's put it that way. A removal spell is actually quite assuming. You know if they have an Annihilate up, you know if they have a Death Strike up, but you might not know that they have a Wasp up.
Yes.
because of the timing window for ambush, and there's no other mechanic. There's no other thing in the game that I dislike more than having a sweet combo get ambushed by a desert marshal, right? We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in the next one of the next ones, but yeah.
But yeah,
And
so overall, ambush, very tricky mechanic to play around. If you can sniff it out, obviously that is to your advantage, but that you can play around it. But overall, the interactions between coming in at the end of turn to surprise attack your opponent's weapon or just surprise attack them themselves, um, to ambush in for a block with a Scorpion Wasp or even a Cabal Countess or the ambush silence effects from Desert Marshal just adds a lot of play to the game, a lot of interactions that you need to be aware of. So if you catch yourself against any of those colored cards, make sure you're aware of those creatures and their costs, because ambush creatures can, exactly as the name, ambush you and kind of ruin your day after that. All right, so moving on to number 4. Number 4 is Killer. So Killer, Killer, Killer. Actually, so Overmaster, you have the most experience out of us two with the Killer mechanic. So break down the mechanic for us.
so killer's basically for the magic people out there, killer is basically a fight mechanic. Basically, what happens is you play a unit like a predator or carnosaur with the ability killer, and then you basically exhaust it, and it deals its damage to the opposing creature, and and the opposing creature deals its damage to it, right? So that's basically killer. Now the keys about killer is that it mostly gets added to your units with Predator's Instinct. There are very few actual killer cards in the game, but Predator's Instinct says give a unit killer, and you can give something with Overwhelm killer, or give something with Deadly killer or something like that, right? And it stays on the card, so that what happens is that you'll use the killer to potentially deal with a unit and maybe even kill itself in the process. But then you'll use Dark Return to bring it back. Or for example, Dawnwalker, which used to be a disgusting mechanic since but it has a little toned down with the exhausted. It now comes back into play exhausted. But yeah, so you can recur the killer mechanic, and that's why it's so powerful. I understand that people are probably a little oh, I mean, infiltrate seems like a mechanic that should belong in this block, but like Xenon Killers has seen not only it has seen probably as much play as infiltrate, but I think it has seen more top level play
Oh, most
than
definitely.
and based on just one card and one interaction. I think beyond any mechanic, I think its singleton card has seen more play than any other mechanic, which stretches across multiple cards usually.
Yeah, because basically the Exene killer list that is basically the archetype that is thrived off of the killer mechanic is basically you give a creature killer, you attack in, you kill their creature, then you end up dark returning your creature back to make it even bigger and to kill another unit all in the same turn. So basically you're killing two creatures and you're basically giving yourself pseudo card advantage. You're basically saying I am using this card over and over again to kill your creatures while for a cheaper cost than what you're actually playing your creatures. So the big one that I've seen the Xena Killer deck that uses it as its finisher is that you play a big Copper Conduit, give it Killer, suicide it in possibly to kill something, or if it just dies, you Dark Return it, and then since it has a Power Surge, you're just adding all your mana back into its power, so you end up having probably like a 13-13, 12-12 Copper Conduit, and you just hit one of their smaller creatures to trample overwhelm the extra damage over. So it the mechanic staying on the card is the huge key for this is the huge key to give it its number 4 spot personally, and that's what we came to a conclusion for, is because it just is basically proactive removal that just tramples over damage if you play it on the right creature, or it just keeps on recurring. If the Dawnwalker gets it, you just suicide it in. Okay, I'll play my Sandstorm Titan, and then you get it back. Obviously you have to wait a turn due to the new what's it called, patch that they put where it comes back exhausted. But pre patch, you would go killer my Dawnwalker, kill that thing, play a Sandstorm Titan or any other 5-drop,
So
bring it
expensive.
back, killer again. If you have enough mana, just continue doing it all in one turn, which was just absurdly insane. Um,
Um,
go
One
ahead.
thing that I want to note: don't be a scrub like me and actually play your Copper Conduit, then play a land afterward. Don't play your power beforehand, so you can actually predators instant.
Oh
You can actually
yes,
predators into the same turn because Power Surge actually uses up. Maybe we should talk about Power Surge too. Power Surge uses up the entire your entire power pool. You can't declare an X value like you
yes.
can in other games like Magic. You can't
Yeah,
declare an X
so
value. You use the rest of the
yeah,
power
so
in your
make
pool.
sure when you go for that Copper Conduit killer turn, you hold a power in your hand because you'll use all your power in the power surge to play the conduit. You play the extra power, so you have enough one power enough to play the Predator's Instinct on your Copper Conduit, and then go for the killer attack. So be very aware.
Yeah.
But all right, so that concludes our number 4 spot, and now moving into number 3, silence, 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 silence. Well, we kind of discussed it a little bit with the Desert Marshal interaction with the ambush, but silencing a unit, basically you just wipe off the text box and make it blank. That's basically what you're doing when you target what's it called, a unit with silence. So for instance, if you silence a Dawnwalker, you no longer get the reoccursion effects. If you silence an entomb creature, they no longer have entomb. The main interaction that I think which makes this or one of the big interactions that just destroys a deck is Steward of the Past, right? Yes, Steward of the Past, correct?
Go to the past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Steward of the Past, the fourth or the 3/5 4-drop, deadly, silence all units and all voids. If an entomb
In
unit,
their void.
oh,
It doesn't
in your yeah,
it
in your
doesn't
opponent's
silence.
void, yes.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if say their Umbran Reaper dies, then Tomb Trigger will try to trigger. But if you have a Steward of the Past on the battlefield, it'll silence it while it's in the void, and it'll cancel out the Entomb Trigger. And that works with all creatures with Entomb Triggers if you have a Steward of the Past. Um, so that is a very strong mechanic because that just prevents 5 damage going to your face from the Umbran Reaper, and also other Entomb mechanics or Entomb effects as well. What do you have to add to this silence ranking?
Um, I would say it's probably I mean, you have so many different archetypes that just run 8 silences, right? There's any Combre deck worth its salt, I guess. So just Combre. Normally other like splashes. Sometimes they don't run the Valkyrie Enforcer because it costs double justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the, you run 8 silence effects in a lot of Combre decks, and yeah, it's really annoying to play against. So you have this sweet strategy, but it requires you to have like a unit that has some sweet effect, and then all of a sudden, they just whip out a Desert Marshal and you're done. Your combo is done. And since Combat is basically built on like overstated units, right? And they usually they're usually vanilla, maybe a couple of you know what I consider vanilla effects like overwhelm or something like that, aegis, blah blah blah, right? They basically can overpower you because of this interaction. I think it's necessary in order to prevent in terms of a mechanical design of the game, right? I think that is extremely strong, right? But I don't think it's too powerful. I think it's necessary in order to prevent certain interactions from happening. It may be annoying to play against, but I think having these safeguards, the safeguards in the
Yes.
game, like for example, if Steward of the Past didn't exist, we would probably see ETS overloaded with Reanimator decks. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Reanimator's not strong enough. But if they didn't have these safeguards in the game, Steward of the Past, we if they printed anything really powerful in a later set, like that, you want them to print more powerful cards,
Yes,
right?
most
But
definitely.
you can't print those more powerful cards if you don't have the safeguards. And I think they do have the safeguards in place right now with Desert Marshal and Steward of the Pass and even Valkyrie Enforcer. I think they have the safeguards in place for them to make very, very powerful mechanics and not have to worry as much.
Yeah, and then one last key interaction that I want to talk about before we move on to the number 2 spot is that when you silence a creature, you silence the weapon on it as well. So if it has
Right.
any attachments, it gets silenced as well. So say for instance you have um, a Elder's Feather on a creature, so it gives it +1/+0 with flying. Well, that weapon now gets the text box gets wiped off. Now all that weapon does is just give +1/+0. So that's very key interactions against any overwhelm weapons like Morningstar, or weapons that reoccur like a Steel Form Chakram or Steel Fang Chakram. I'm sorry, and Vatican Staff. So that is
Yeah.
very key interaction that you want to be aware of, because say they have a staff in draft, if you're able to silence the unit, or yeah, if you're able to silence a unit, the staff never reoccurs, and so on and so forth. So that is a key interaction that you want to be aware of when you are.
I can't hear you anymore.
What was that? Sorry.
I couldn't hear you for a second there.
Oh, did I drop out? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for half a second there. It's fine. We can hear you now.
All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, but anyways, what I was saying is that you want to be aware of those interactions if possible, and to give you kind of a leg up in the competition. So, all right, so moving from number 3, we are headed to our number 2 spot, which
We're starting the two busted mechanics. The
the
mechanics that I think should be changed a little. Maybe we'll see as the time moves on. But yeah,
and it is Warcry. Warcry. So this was a very interesting discussion between me and the Overmaster. Overmaster felt it was worthy as a number 1 spot, but I felt it was worthy as a number 2 spot, and my argument ended up winning. But
but
anyways, let's.
don't be so proud of yourself there.
So the Warcry mechanic. So whenever a creature with Warcry attacks, the top weapon or unit gains +1/+1 or +X based on the number after the Warcry effect. Um, so so if it has Warcry 2, the top unit or weapon will get +2/+2. If it has Warcry 1, it'll get +1/+1. Um, so the main thing that that I stressed about the Warcry mechanic is basically long-term card advantage. You're basically getting pseudo card advantage throughout the game when you're attacking with a Warcry unit. So Overmaster, explain that pseudo card advantage that I like to call it with Warcry.
Let's say an extra card is +2/+2 off of a Warcry. So every single time you hit for 2 Warcry triggers, you're drawing an extra card. It's not card advantage you see immediately, but it's actually it's hard to describe as card advantage itself. It's more like a tempo advantage. You're getting a mana advantage of your opponent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's cards and tempo and whatnot. But it's very hard to beat a Rakana player that has Warcried a bunch of times. It is very, very difficult unless you're a control player and you have the exact specific answer to that Warcried unit or weapon, right? Unless you have that exact specific scenario, you're going to be hit by for quite a bit, and the turn you're it's not going to be 2 turns. It's going to be 1 turn for you to be dead from a very large Warcry. And this one of the things that I dislike about Warcry is that they stack on top of each other so much, right? The next unit is going to be like +5/+5 sometimes, right? Or +6/+6. Sometimes like I've seen like +13/+13, etc. I mean, with Icaria it can be +15,
Could be insane.
15 sometimes, right? And it's just I think that if they had moved to have the mechanic be a bit better for if they didn't stack on the same unit, if they did like what happens when you make the next top card of your deck Echo or something like that, they would move to the next unit or something like that. It would probably be it would be a lot less powerful, but it also would allow a little bit more time for the control decks to be able to muster defense.
Yeah, so basically, kind of just sum up the card advantages. Basically, you make a 2/2 into a 3/3. Now it attacks better into their 2x creatures and so on and so forth. And just, especially in draft, this seems to be the most problematic, especially when the trigger starts steamrolling, because you just end up getting a 5/5 3-drop, and then now like they have to deal with your 5/5, or you have a 2-drop 3/3 now that attacks through their 2/2s and stuff like that. So basically, it's like pseudo card advantage or tempo. But once you start describing it as tempo, I feel you start getting into a fuzzy area. But basically, it just snowballs out of control, and if it is not dealt with, so that's why it earns our number 2 spot. Moving on to number 1. So can we get a little drum roll, please? If we had a drum roll,
Yeah.
little thing. Number 1, guys. Here we go. Aegis.
I already mentioned it, but yeah.
Aegis. So Aegis is our number 1 mechanic.
Yeah, I guess.
For the pure fact, so this is what won the argument for getting as number 1, is that for a fact, every time you're trying to deal with an Aegis unit, it is a 2-for-1 every single time. You can harsh rule and get rid of half their board, but if they have Aegis units, you still have to have another answer to it. You have to have either another harsh rule to follow up, or you have to have a direct damage spell, or annihilate or death strike, and so on and so forth. Aegis is a 2-for-1 every single time, and we feel that it is put on creatures without an additional cost to it. So, for instance, you have the Crown Watch. You have the Crown Watch Paladin. That's a two cost 2/2 that has Aegis and Warcry. We feel that card is too overcosted. Maybe as a 3-drop, it would be pretty powerful still, but it is just practically a 2-for-1 every time. And do you have anything else to add about it, Overmaster?
Well, I mean, if you go through the list, right? Besides ambush, right? Which 5 of the 6 cards I've seen play, 8 of the 10 Aegis units have seen play, and I mean, I give a shout outs to Thunderbird and Westwind Herald, which Thunderbird is not really that powerful, but it sees play in its respective archetype, Huru Flyers, which hasn't seen play in a little while, but
due to the Gilded Glaive change,
it's still a hard deck to deal with a lot of times. I don't know.
Yeah, and then Westwind Herald seeing play in its combo deck with Strength of the Pact.
But you take a look at some of these cards, for example, like Crown Watch Paladin, Silver Watch Paladin. Like, these things are just some of the most powerful things you could be doing.
All the way
right?
up to Icaria.
And then Icaria is just insane. But Icaria is just an insane finisher.
Yeah. But yeah, so go ahead. Sorry.
It's just I think that in order to change this mechanic, right, and I think it is too powerful in its current form, they can make sweepers not effective, or be Aegis is
mass removal not effective.
Yeah, exactly. Mass removal actually takes out the unit by going through the Aegis. A single targeted removal would work. Would work. The Aegis would work against. So, for example, you would have like an Annihilate. You would need 2 Annihilates or a Suffocated Annihilate to take care of a Crown Watch Paladin, but you could actually use a Harsh Rule to take care of it. That way, it actually gives the control decks a little bit of time to set up. Right now, it's just sometimes there's nothing you can do, right?
Yeah,
there's nothing to do against certain draws, and that's not something that I like in a game when you have nothing you can do.
Yeah, because say you go for the Harsh Rule on their filled board and they just hold up Stand Together the whole entire time. There's nothing you can do. There is basically nothing you can do, because they'll play Stand Together, all their units get +1/+1 in Aegis, and just negates the Harsh Rule attempt. So It's basically a 2-for-1 every time. That's why it earns the top spot in our top 5 mechanics in the game. And we hope to see that it doesn't get put on undercosted units later on, I guess we could say. So, um, so that ends our top 5 mechanics, and we'll be moving on to our next section, the ETS results. So last week on the ETS, there wasn't it wasn't too much of a surprise of who won, but or not the person, but the deck that won.
And I wasn't surprised who won either, but anyway.
But
To be fair.
congratulations to the first place winner using Rakano Aggro Unearthly. So congratulations, Unearthly. This is the deck right here. If you guys want to check it out. Um, Not surprised that we're seeing a Ryzen Rakano, very fast deck. Just beats down the opponent, doesn't allow them to set up, and just punishes them. Basically for the reasons what we talked about the top 5. Basically the Aegis, they play Aegis Warcry units, and you can't deal with them. They have Warcry. When they're attacking you early on before you stabilize, they have a bunch of Warcry triggers stacked up on multiple cards, and then they slam them down once you get rid of their board, and now you have to deal with those. So basically, it combines the top 2 mechanics that we think are the most powerful in the game, and just uses them against you with brute force. Do you have anything to say about the first place finish?
Before it's Splitting Up makes a comment in the chat, saying that Levitate is good against Aegis. Yeah, Levitate is good against Aegis. You know what? When a card is playable because of another mechanic is broken, that doesn't make the mechanic safe to put into the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Levitate is not a good card unless you're using it to infiltrate things, right? It is really, really a bad card. It replaces itself, sure, but it's kind of a bad card.
Yeah, like
If you need Levitate in order to deal with Aegis, then you know that the mechanic is probably a little pushed and a little too powerful. It's good that there are safeguards in the game initially that can combat it, but at the same time, like I don't want to put Levitates in my deck just to take care of Aegis.
Yeah, because alone Levitate isn't an outstanding card on its own. But
Yeah.
the reason why I include Levitates in my control decks is because leading up to my harsh rules, I want to be able to break the Aegis so I can officially sweep the board up in one roll, other than 2-for-1ing myself. In a sense, I'm technically like 1.5, like I'm wasting half a card because it cycles. But yeah, when
Anyway,
you have
moving
to
on
include bad cards in your deck in order to fight one particular mechanic, then it really shows that it is overpowered. But anyways, moving back onto the tournament series, yeah, Rakano Aggro really beating down on Stone Scar, and then our second place deck
Oh
that
yeah,
we.
that's just a remark on the list. The fact that it's unremarkable, I guess. Like Rich's Furies have been used for a little while. Finest Hours are still being used. Are being used now. People are starting to play around it a little bit more, but when the beta first or the open beta first dropped, Finest Hour was something that you just didn't play around, and I think it's still a fun trick even when people play around it. Yeah, there's nothing in this list that's really remarkable.
Yeah,
it's just a
pretty
really
stocked
solid
Rakano.
list.
Yeah, it's basically stocked Rakano, and it's good. It's fast, it's aggressive, and it just
Yep.
beats you down, basically.
Guys, I'm a scrub. I got the master with it. I mean, there you go.
All right,
It's
so
good.
moving on to our next deck. Congratulations to Ilyak for placing second here, runner-up with Combri Aggro. Pretty stock Combri list, except for the addition of District Infantry. He's running 4 District Infantries in the spot of Finest Hour that you would normally see. Probably puts you a little bit lower down to the ground, more aggressive, and then you probably bring in the Finest Hours against like the burn matchups possibly. But I think this deck is also aggressive, not as low as quick as Rakano due to Rakano having burn, but it is very versatile against control decks because you get the stand togethers with the +1/+1 in Aegis, and you have a little bit more Aegis creatures, and then you also have a way to go with the long game with Seraph, and then you also have the good old Desert Marshals for their silence ambush effects. Anything you'd like to add about this deck?
I mean, it's pretty stock.
Yeah.
District Infantry is like a. Well, actually, Initiate of Sands is something that I'm not too sure I like too much, but I mean, he came second, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock Iliac or anything like that. I think he has. I think there's definitely reasons why it's in there. I never liked Initiate of the Stance or something like this, and a non-token strategy because let's say you played Initiate turn one, you still have to play power to play the Awakened Student unless you have the exact Seed of Progress first turn, and that way you can get, I guess you can get a trigger off Awakened Student, but otherwise it's really not. I don't see Initiate into Seraph being that strong of a play unless you're using Initiate into Vatican Staff and you get that in 1 in every 10 games. So I just don't think that Initiates are really that powerful in these low to the ground style decks besides tokens lists. Other than that, I like how he can go a little bit bigger with the Great Parliaments and Xenon Obelisk in the board. That's pretty nice. And yeah, it's basically preying on. It has Warcry Aegis with Sand Together, Crown Watch Paladin. Basically, the mechanics that are truly busted. This Crown Watch Paladin is probably a little too powerful. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe
Yeah.
Crown Watch Paladin on itself is too powerful. I don't know. If running 4 Vanquish, that's a lot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyways, moving on to our ETS shoutouts now. So we have 2 decks that we like to shout out. The first one is Exean Killers that finished 4th by Shmune. And congratulations to finishing in the top 4. The reason why we wanted to shout this out is because we're seeing the rise of Exean Killers not only in the ETS but also on ladder. Basically, we kind of broke down the deck earlier in the show. You play a big Copper Conduit, you give it Killer with Predator's Instinct, and you just kill their creatures proactively while dealing damage with Overwhelm. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, he's running my list, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
I'm just joking, but still, he's not running Initiates, and that's a big deal. I think Initiates are terrible in the deck. I think that the Initiate into Beast Caller's Amulet only occurs every 10 games or something like that, so I think it's really not very good. Especially since you can also get a Virus Favored or Torched or whatever, and it's still a 1-mana 1/1, and it just did nothing for you. And you see the results. He came top 4 as soon as Xenon Killers took that out, right? As soon as he took that out, he did really well. And not last season, but the season beforehand, I was actually for the first day or so, right, before I went to bed and whatnot for that night, I was number 1 on the ladder with this deck, basically, without Ambient Monuments, because Ambient Monuments weren't 5/5s then, right? With basically this list, because the initiates weren't very good. In the sideboard, I'm not too sure I agree with the 4 decays, but I'm not too sure what you would ever bring in 4 decays against. But
Well, he's
Infinite
using
Hourglass,
it as his ruins, so.
true, but I don't think you ever need 4. If you need 4, then likely your deck is just too weak to Armory or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably just too weak to Armory.
But anyways, so that basically wraps up that deck. So congratulations again for the 4th place finish.
Congratulations, Smoody.
And then the last
You
deck.
can find him at twitch.tv/Smoony. He's a European. He streams around his time, around 12 o'clock his time, so like 5 o'clock my time. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that.
But anyways, oops, sorry, wrong.
Wait. No, sorry. Yeah.
So
12,
the last deck was brought to you by me. So this was like honestly, like, this was the spiciest deck that showed up to the tournament. Just to be honest though, is this like we literally searched every single uh, what's it called? Every single deck that was played, and we got this deck. That was mine. It was basically a pilfer plus subvert, kind of steal your opponent's cards, play them against them. Unfortunately, we got run down by various Rakano decks. But yeah, so basically it was a fun deck. We actually had some good runs about it on the ladder. We spell swiped their winning Channel the Tempest, and we used it against them for the win. We spell swiped the Levitate, so they couldn't block our final attack with our flyer. So yes,
Pretty sick play. Pretty
yes.
sick plays.
Unfortunately, I went 0-3 because I got run down by various Rakano decks and like very tempo. But overall, it was fun playing it on the ladder. Not so well probably in tournament play. I think I was expecting more mid-rangey games, but everybody decided to put on their boots and run through everyone, I guess. So, um, but yeah, do you want to add anything about this? Overmaster actually helped me build the list a little bit too. So thank you to Overmaster for helping me tune it a little bit best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this is probably the best way you could probably build this deck. Build a Piffler, a Pilfer deck for a ladder or whatnot, or a steel type deck. I don't necessarily like steel type effects because I mean it means that you're expecting your opponent's deck to be better than yours and you're using it against them. So I always expect my deck to be better than my opponent's, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but other than that,
it must have been fun though, man.
yes,
Yeah,
it was very fun having those pretty sweet games. Like I said, we stole Channel of the Tempest after their opponent thought that he actually had the win, so we stole it, we used it against him, and we got the final kill off of that. So it was a overall fun deck. But so if you guys want to mess around with that, feel free. Let me know how you guys did. So we'll be concluding the show here, but with our final outro kind of like sayings. We got a sponsor by a game here on Steam. So if you guys want to help support the show free of charge, all you guys got to do is go download Spellstone using this link, and what's it called? And
yeah.
we'll get $2 for every time someone downloads the game. Um, so that'll help us, kind of contribute to the show and stuff like that. So feel free to download using that URL, and we get $2 for everyone that downloads it. So feel free to go download that. Tell everybody to use that link if you want to basically give us free money.
Yeah. I Yeah. To note, I have no idea how the game plays. It looked like it was interesting. A little overpowered. Some of the cards looked a little overpowered, but it's basically a card type game, a new card type game.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be a fun uh, card game. So feel free to download that, guys. And then also we are changing the time and date of the Eternal Show. We are moving it to uh,
Right.
Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and also so that contributes to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, so that'll be on for at least the next month. We might have another change. So we might have another change due to my school schedule because obviously I'm off on winter break. I am a college student, so I got to be aware. And then also if it fits with Overmaster's time. So other than that, we'll be concluding our show. This episode will be uploaded to YouTube. And also, thank you guys all for tuning in. Much appreciated. You guys can, if you guys can follow us on Twitter to get updates about the show, and also we'll be starting some Twitter polls. If you have any cool content, feel free to email us at the Eternal Show that you guys wanted to, or private message us. But other than that, guys, thank you guys all for tuning in. Much appreciated, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys later.
Have a good one, guys.